What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's enjoying their day so far. And we are back with some more fantasy football content. Today, we're going to be starting several mock drafts over the next couple of weeks leading up to the upcoming NFL season. So, today, we're going to be doing the first overall pick. Then, next time that we do this, we will do the fifth pick. Then, the next after that, we will be picking from the 10th pick. So, kind of give you a little strategies if you have early first round pick, what to do, if a mid round pick, and then a late round pick. So, before we start this draft, let's go ahead and dive into the rules in the format of this draft. So I'm going to be doing a 10-team PPR format today, and how the rosters are shaped. It's one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, a kicker, defense, and then six bench spots. I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll also add, one more wide receiver, one more flex. We'll kind of, tinker with some of the roster spots to how your home league or redraft leagues are this upcoming season. So let's go ahead and waste no time. Let's get to the first overall pick. And I think that this is pretty much a two-way street. We could either go with Jamar Chase, wide receiver of the Bengals, or Bijan Robinson, the running back of the Falcons. I did have Bijan Robinson as one of my top two running backs behind Saquon Barkley, so he would definitely be up there. Jamar Chase is my number one wide receiver heading into this 2025 season. So it's really just if you want to start the draft at the wide receiver position and attack the running back position in round number two, or vice versa, do you want to attack the running back position and go wide receiver? I think that both formats would work this season, but we are going to be going with Jamar Chase, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that it's either Jamar Chase or Bijan Robinson at pick number one. So we are going to be going with wide receiver to start this draft and go with Chase. So now we got a couple of picks to wait for our next one. As you see there, our next pick will be in 17 picks. So we're going to kind of skip through this, and then we will go right to the draft board to just see how this draft is shaping out in the first two rounds. Just kind of give you an idea of how these first two rounds of these fantasy drafts are going. So you see Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs go off the board. I pretty much expect that those two running backs to go off the board after Chase goes in the first pick. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, and Drake London all go in the first round. I think that's pretty standard, a first round. Then you see in the second round, Brian Thomas. So it looks like the last place team gets Drake London and Brian Thomas. Then Nico Collins, Ashton Genty, Devon A-Chain, Malik Neighbors. Brock Bowers, the first tight end, is off the board at 206. Ladd McConkey, Derrick Henry, and Tyreek Hill. So it's pretty how much we expected to go the first and second round. So we're back on the clock here with the last pick in the second round. So you can use this cheat sheet over at Fantasy Pros Draft Simulator to give you kind of an idea of how the tier setup is, quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. So we do have some really good wide receivers still on the board here with Josh Jacobs and Bucky Irvin. I think that we are going to go looking at our team here. We do only have Jamar Chase. So I think we're going to go with a little hero RB build, though it's going to be hard to pass up on a guy like A.J. Brown and Jackson Smith-Njigba. But with my first pick, I will go with Bucky Irvin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was a PPR machine last year. I think that he's going to do really good things in the 2025 season. So we are going to go with Bucky Irvin. Bucky Irving is one of those prototypical running backs where he can give you both points on the ground and also in the receiving game. He's definitely one of the best running backs to pick up in fantasy. So we're going to go with Bucky Irving with our last pick in the second round. Now we get back-to-back picks since we do have the first overall pick. So far we do have Jamar Chase and Bucky Irvin. So now we pretty much could go separate ways here. We could go with one of these elite quarterbacks because it's more than likely once we get up with our next pick, the Josh Allens of the world, the Lamar Jacksons of the world aren't going to be here. But I think that we're going to kind of keep it balanced here. It's really between Josh Jacobs and Chase Brown there at the running backs, And then the receivers, you got a guy like A.J. Brown still on the board, and then Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I'm very high on this season of the Seattle Seahawks. But it's just very hard to pass up on a running back duo of Josh Jacobs and Bucky Irvin this year. So I'm going to do that. So there's our two starting running backs with Bucky Irvin and Josh Jacobs. We do have our wide receiver one with Jamar Chase could be our next pick there. So you see there, Lamar Jackson is your first quarterback taken off the board. Josh Allen goes a couple of picks after them. And look, so there's the quarterback run, Joe Burrow and Jane Daniels. Let's go ahead and take a look at the draft board just to see how those next couple of picks went. So JSN did go after us. I was really considerate picking them, but I feel confident that we could get a really good wide receiver too. So 2 quarterbacks go in the 3rd round with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Another tight end goes. So it looks like the tight end drop-off is starting because Brock Bowers and Trey McBride are really separating themselves as the tight end 1 and tight end 2 in this league. You saw Chase Brown, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, T. Higgins, and Garrett Wilson finish off the 3rd. You did have 2 more quarterbacks go in the 4th round with Joe Burrow and Jane Daniels. And look at all the running backs. You had Kamara, Hall, Williams, Cook, and Walker. And then we got sniped with 2 really good receivers of Devontae Adams and Marvin Harrison Jr. So going back to the cheat sheet here, I think that we're either going to go 3 ways here. We could go with Jalen Hurts because he's in that last tier of elite quarterbacks. And then we scroll on down to the wide receivers. Mike Evans is still here. Terry McLaurin, it says that he's day-to-day. And then DJ Moore is also another. I think that we're going to go Mike Evans here for sure. I think that he's really one of the most consistent wide receivers that you can get, especially at this point of the draft. So let's go ahead and get Mike Evans as our wide receiver 2. And now we could kind of go several ways here. Could we go with another wide receiver with Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore? I think that we really, though, we need to snag one of these elite quarterbacks, and we are going to go with Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. You see his ADP. He is the quarterback 4. And then looking at him last season, he was the quarterback 7. So we get a quarterback, and we also get a wide receiver. So our squad is start. I almost thought about taking George Kittle because I feel like after him, there is a sudden drop-off at tight ends. But at this point, all the elite tight ends are gone. So you might as well punt that position at that point. So now let's go back to the draft board to see how the next couple of picks went. So there we saw 3 more wide receivers go, or 4 wide receivers, excuse me. Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, and Cortland Sutton all went in the 5th round. George Kittle was the lone tight end. No quarterbacks after Jalen Hurts, so that kind of stinks for us. So we probably could have waited and still got a really good quarterback, the Patrick Mahomes, maybe a Baker Mayfield round number 6. But looking at the other running backs that went, Chuba Hubbard, Amarian Hampton, James Conner, and Joe Mixon. You also had Dave Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, R.J. Harvey, Travion Henderson, and Aaron Jones. So the running backs definitely have gone off the board there. So now we are pretty much an open book here in pick number 6-10. So Devontae Smith is one of the best wide receivers still left. We could pair him up with Jamar Chase because we still have a flex spot. I have a couple of spots too. We do need a tight end. We have our quarterback and 2 running backs. I think at this point, you just got to go with the best available. And I think that Devontae Smith is definitely that wide receiver for us. So we're going to pair him with Jamar Chase and Mike Evans. So let's go back to the cheat sheet here, to see how these tiers are setting up. So I think that we're mainly going to be focusing now to get or either a running back or a receiver for this flex spot. And there's not really too many running backs that are catching my eye. Maybe an Isaiah Pacheco here would be a good late round pick. But I'm actually going to go with Jalen Waddle here. We're going to go with back-to-back wide receiver picks here to lock up that flex spot. And then also we have a bench option with a guy like Jalen Waddle, who's the wide receiver 2 on the Miami Dolphins. And if Tyreek suffers an injury, then, Waddle shifts all the way up, maybe into that tier 1 of wide receivers with an injury there. So we do have a nice key piece there on the bench. So we just need our tight end, and that would be our last starter there. So let's go back to the draft board to see how things are starting to shake out here. We do have some tight ends going off the board like Evan Ingram, TJ Hockenson, Sam Laporta, and Travis Kelce. And look at the quarterbacks, I went round number 7, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, who suffered an injury today in training camp. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. So that's just something to monitor if you are keeping an eye on, if you're drafting a guy like Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson. So we will now go back to our pick here at 8-10. I definitely think that we are getting to that point in the draft where we do need to draft tight end. I do see a really good wide receivers still on the board there. So I am going to scroll down to the tight end. I am actually going to go with David Njoku. Mark Andrews is on the better offense, but I think that Njoku has some more upside. I know quarterback position isn't great. You're probably going to be having Joe Flacco start, but we saw Flacco and Njoku, and Njoku was really phenomenal at the tight end position. So give me Njoku. That'll be our starting tight end. We could potentially go with a tight end earlier. And I'm going to actually go with another wide receiver with Chris Olave. Chris Olave, as long as he can stay healthy this season, I know that the Saints offense isn't going to be great, but if you can get a wide receiver one this late in the draft, I am jumping all over that. So we will be adding Chris Olave to our bench and giving us another piece. So we do have two wide receivers now on the bench with Jalen Waddle and Chris Olave. So I think that in the next couple of picks, we do need to stack up some running backs because we only have two running backs with Josh Jacobs and Bucky Irving. So let's go back to the cheat sheet here. We do have some running backs that are still – there's a lot of running backs still that are still available. So let's see how many bench spots. I believe that we have 4 picks to go here on the bench as we try to scroll down there. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, and 4 more bench spots. So looking at all these running backs, you really just want to go with upside at this point. You know, the Dallas situation, you do have really 3 guys there with Jaden Blue. Rico Dowdle is now on the Carolina Panthers, but you do have Javonte Williams. So I think that we're going to go actually down the list here. We're going to go with Ray Davis. We're going to kind of get some handcuff running backs. Ray Davis, James Cook, he's going to be the prototypical RB1 at the Buffalo Bills. But at this late in the draft, you kind of want to go with either a handcuff or a guy that could potentially step up if a guy gets hurt. So we're going to go with Ray Davis, the running back for the Buffalo Bills. And we're actually going to go with another running back here. I'm actually going to go with Jaden Blue of the Dallas Cowboys because you don't really know what the situation is going to be in Dallas. And Jaden Blue had a terrific career with the Texas Longhorns. So I'm going to go with a little bit of an upside pick here. It is a little bit risky, but it is like kind of like low risk, high reward here. But I'm going to go Jaden Blue, get our first rookie on the board there. So we do have Ray Davis and Jaden Blue as our backup running back. So we do have a couple of more bench spots there. I don't really think that we are going to go after a backup quarterback here since there's only so few bench spots. We're just going to try to get high upside picks at this point. So you see a lot of tight ends, a lot of quarterbacks going off the board there. So, man, one of the guys that I actually wanted just went Kyler Murray. That would have been a sensational pick this slate. But looking at more of the running backs, Tank Bigsby, Trey Benson. Let's go all the way down to the tight end because I do want to try and snag another tight end if we can. And it's looking like Jake Ferguson. And that's honestly fine with me. I feel like Jake Ferguson's kind of getting a little bit disrespected just because of Dak Prescott's play last season. When Ferguson and Prescott were both healthy, Ferguson was one of the best tight ends in fantasy football. So I have no problem in getting Jake Ferguson. So we do have 2 Cowboys on the roster. So that is our running back situation and wide receivers. And let's go ahead and grab another wide receiver here while we were at it. And we do have some really good wide receivers. Josh Downs, he's a really good prospect, but you just look at the quarterback situation, you just don't really know. Khalil Shakir, he was definitely one of the more underrated ones. But I'm going to go with Emeka Ibuka, the Tampa Bay wide receiver, and taking another Tampa wide receiver. I know that you look at it, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Jalen McMillan. I feel like Ibuka has a really good opportunity to really be this wide receiver 3, and they are on a really good offense. So I'm going to go with Ibuka here out of Ohio State. So that's going to give us 3 solid wide receivers, 2 of them being from the NFC South and the other being on the Miami Dolphins there. So looking at our next pick, we could really go anyways. We're just kind of looking for value and upside this late in the game. We do have to go defense and a kicker still, but I do want it to really fill out this bench before we really do that. So let's see how many bench spots we have at this point. Looks like our bench is filled. So now let's go just back to the suggestions here, and we will pick a defense and a kicker. So looks like let's go to the defenses here because looks like the experts are wanting to take the Kansas City Chiefs. Detroit Lions, if they could stay healthy, they could definitely be one of the best defenses there. You had the Rams defense, who was definitely young and talented. The Chargers, too. But we are going to go with the experts here. We're going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I had them last year, and they were pretty solid for me for most of the season. So now we have to give our kicker. And why not go with one of the best young kickers in this fantasy draft class? And let's go with Jake Bates, the kicker from the Detroit Lions, because that's an offense that's going to be in the red zone a lot. But Jake Bates really had a really good season with the Detroit Lions. So now let's look at our team. So starting at the quarterback position, we do have Jalen Hurts. Running back is Bucky Irvin and Josh Jacobs. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase and Mike Evans. Our tight end, feel like David Njoku. This is where we might get tripped up there. It just really depends on that Cleveland Browns situation at the quarterback position. We do have Devontae Smith out of the flex, so we did a little stack there. Didn't even realize it with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. So that's another strategy to keep in mind. If you can, say if you get Jamar Chase, you definitely want to go after Joe Burrow and get as many points as well. Same thing down the line. If you have Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, you want to pair them up with Jalen Hurts if you can. But going on down the line, we have the Chiefs defense. Jake Bates is our kicker. And then looking at the bench spots, we do have 3 wide receivers, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, and Emeka Ibuka. 2 running backs with Ray Davis and Jaden Blue, and then a tight end of Jake Ferguson. So that is our first mock draft, drafting from the 1.01. Let me know what you think about my team and how you would attack this draft at this position. Like I mentioned, we'll be doing more of these mock drafts over the next couple of weeks. And as well, tune in to in a couple of days when I drop my top 5 fantasy wide receivers. And if you missed my top 5 fantasy running backs, that video will be available on our channel. You can tune into that as well if you missed that. So we do have a lot of fantasy football content rolling on the channel. So I do appreciate everybody for tuning in today's video. And I will catch you all next time. So long for now.